Hi, my name is Keith Royster, Deputy Director of Communications for the City of Orange Township, standing in for Mayor Dwayne Warren. In our effort to better inform the public regarding the upcoming Board of Education election, it is my privilege to speak with prospective candidates contesting for the Orange Board of Education seats in the upcoming election this Tuesday, March 13th. Candidates for the Orange Board of Education have agreed to answer questions of interest to residents about their background, what motivates them to run for seats in the upcoming election, and what their plans are to help our children excel in the classroom in preparation for continuing a lifelong learning experience either in institutions of higher learning or the world of work. We have with us Al-Nesha Jones-Holloway, one of several candidates vying for a seat on our school board. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for your willingness to sacrifice your time to serve in such an important role. So let's just get to it. Have some questions, which I'm sure the audience would be willing to hear your input on.
Sure.
What is your level of education experience? Tell us a little about you professionally.
Sure. I earned my undergraduate degree at Montclair State in 2007. That degree is in business administration with a double concentration in accounting and marketing. I spent 2 years in my career life, and then I went back to school to get my MBA, also from Montclair State University, and my concentration there is management. As far as career, I spent my entire career as an accountant. I'm a CPA, a certified public accountant. I've been a CPA since 2009. I spent the first 10 years of my career at Ernst & Young and Prudential, where I worked primarily in finding errors and omissions and fraud in financial statements of very large companies. And at Prudential, I was responsible for compiling financial statements. I'm currently an entrepreneur. I've run my own accounting firm for 3 years where I help small businesses with their accounting and tax needs.
Okay, great. What do you understand the role of a board education member to be?
I understand the primary function of a Board of Education member to be to oversee the process of pulling the budget together, to approve that budget, but then also just in a more generalistic kind of way to just make sure that the vision is clear and we're transforming the strategies that are being developed into real action to make sure things are actually getting done and not just, ideas being formulated, that things are actually moving along.
So, from your perspective, what are the top 2 issues that you would address should you be elected to the board?
Sure. And some of these come from my experience with my own children in the Orange School District. The first one is a lack of community involvement. I see this a lot as PTO president, and I think that unfortunately affects our larger community, just not having enough involvement from the local businesses and all parents and faculty and neighbors. So the first issue is just finding ways to get our community more involved. And then the second issue that I think exists is not having a fresh set of eyes to kind of oversee that budget process. This has been my entire career, so I've seen a lot of times where budgets are great, but funds aren't appropriated in the most effective manner. It's what I do every day with clients, and I think the board could benefit from having someone who does this on a regular basis, provide a fresh set of eyes.
An accountant's pair of eyes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about ways in which you've been active thus far in improving the City of Orange and state what you've done in terms of just getting out there, being engaged. Let's talk about that.
Sure. So my son is the oldest of my 3 children, and he is a student at Cleveland Street. This is his second year at Cleveland Street School. This is my second year as PTO president. I take so much pride in that role that bears precedence on my calendar, which means I've attended all school dances and DJ'd and packed snacks and planned the school's first trunk or treat. I really just find true joy in doing things that will reward our students. Unfortunately, you see a lot of things that aren't necessarily positive, but I feel like we have the opportunity to provide a positive influence for them. So I'm extremely active in my son's school as PTO president, but also as a parent, and just chipping in any way I can. We're currently planning some trips for the kids this year, so it's an exciting time.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about what you see the priorities to be from day one, what do you see your primary mission or missions to be?
Again, this comes from my experiences with my children that are in the district. And the first one, I hear a lot of parent grievances, so I'm able to kind of pull those together and understand what most parents want. And the biggest is giving our children the resources they need to succeed. My child is deaf in one ear, and luckily, and we're very grateful that it doesn't really affect his learning, but it could. And there are things that could be done in his school and his learning that could potentially help him. And we just don't have those resources in our school, the resources that other schools have. And I'm not just talking of getting things that work for my child. I'm talking about things that work for all of our children, and getting our children overall better resources, get them better equipped for the technology that they'll be faced in their professional careers. So I think the first is better allocating funds to get our children the resources that they need. And then the second is better preparing them for these standardized tests. Whether or not we, love them, I understand that most parents do not. The fact of the matter is they currently are huge in evaluating where our children stand. And I don't think the preparation process should start when they become of testing age. I think that has to start much earlier, so that we can start to train them to think in the way that these tests evaluate them and give them experiences that would help them to relate to these tests. If they don't know what a trail is, they'll never know what that is on a test. So just giving them better experiences, better resources, those are my two top priorities.
Okay. And how do you see that being reflected as you give input and help put a budget together? And how does that really marry to what your priorities are in addition to whatever budgetary responsibilities you're faced with?
A part of this role is definitely looking at the numbers and sitting in meetings and adding and subtracting. But a larger part of this is getting out to schools and talking to parents and students and seeing what we could do to better forge a relationship between us all to make these things happen for our children. Budget concerns, unfortunately, are what our district is faced with, and we don't have unlimited funds. So making the most of those funds and then supplementing with community involvement, I think is what bridges the gap. So I don't think it's just solely looking at numbers. I think it's also getting out there and making sure that parents feel that they're also a part of this process. Their concerns are being heard, and that we're actually making steps to where they want to see their children's education.
Okay. Well, we've talked about the whole budget and operational end of things. Let's talk about what was the calling to inspire you to run for the Orange Board of Education?
So I feel like in my entire life, I've only wanted to be two things, and neither one of them was a politician. The first was a really good mom. I've always wanted to be a good parent, and the second was an entrepreneur. This falls into me wanting to be a good parent. I went through public school for the majority of my schooling career. I went to school in East Orange in Newark, was where I lived at the time. And I know the opportunities that could be afforded to our children if we put them in front of them at an early age. I know what the mentors I had did for me in my adult years. I know that played a huge role in the success that I achieved today, be it little or big. That played a huge role in that. So I am absolutely sure that by running and being a part of the Board of Education, I can play an impactful role in our children's lives. I don't think that our children should suffer because they live in a district with what could be seen as less funds than a different district. I don't think that they should have less opportunities because of it. I just don't want to see those opportunities be limited.
Got it. Well, opportunities speak to resources. Resources speak to budget. Circling back to the whole budget end of your of the role you want to assume, what ideas do you have that would yield more resources for the Board of Education? Ways to reduce the burden on homeowners, taxpayers. What are your thoughts on that?
I think a big one, and I drive this street every single day. I think what helps to relieve the pressure on homeowners would be to have more businesses in the city of Orange, more commercial properties being occupied by businesses that could pay taxes to the city of Orange, and bring that money in, so that we're not leaning so heavily on taxpayers. I think what could also help, again, is the reallocation of funds. I see this in corporate and also in nonprofit sectors. There's this mindset of use it or lose it. And if you don't use all the funds that have been allocated to you, that it'll be cut back. So I think if maybe there were a more strict approval process on the use of funds, that would help in the budgeting process to determine, how much spending is a need versus a want, to help better allocate it, as opposed to, if you've been allocated these funds, spend it or you'll never get it. Again, that can sometimes lead to frivolous spending.
Sure. In terms of students, how would you see opportunities to expose them to new careers, vocations? It's a brand new world out there in terms of technology and competing in a global economy. How do you see your role in terms of getting them ready for that environment?
The first is for every grade level, they all need career days. And I think that's something that's fairly easy to plan and get in place and bring in volunteers. But I also think there need to be clubs structured around the other opportunities that are out there. We won't have, if we continue this route, we won't have many engineers and mathematicians, because we just don't make those things cool anymore. So I think there need to be clubs that inspire children to look into these opportunities, to explore their interest there. I think it is just as important to learn what you don't like as it is to learn what you do. And the earlier we can expose children to these things, the better it'll be for them. I'm also a mentor at Montclair State, which is where I graduated from, and I speak to undeclared majors. And a lot of them say they just wish they were exposed to other things at a younger age. And that's one of those lessons learned that we can take and give that to our children, to just keep that exposure high by giving them opportunities to take field trips to these types of companies that can give them that experience, and then bring those clubs into the schools that they can also, even if it's just like on a temporary basis, maybe 8 weeks or 16 weeks, to just expose them to as much as we can.
Okay. Finally, I'm sure that the viewing audience would be interested in what your plan would be to improve learning and test scores in the district. Any thoughts on that?
Definitely. When I sat at the back-to-school night for Cleveland Street School and they went over the test scores, I could almost feel the parents, even the parents who don't have test-age children, kind of sinking into their seats, almost in shock that the test scores were less than 25% passing. And I think there are a number of reasons why that's occurring. I am a big proponent of focusing on the solution and not, spinning your wheels on the problem. Just how can we get this to better? I think some of the things that we can do to improve that are expose our children to these type of testing materials at an earlier age. What I've heard from some parents is that the curriculum, when you go from second grade to third grade, it almost like scares the children because it's a lot more stringent in third grade. If we ease the children in, I think that will lessen that burden and that huge jump. And then I also think that we could put in place some summer programs, some enrichment programs that of course include some fun, but also give children an opportunity to continue to learn throughout the summer. But it can't all be learning because then they won't exactly find that to be fun. I feel like if there was a mix of the two, they would actually want to attend and they'd be more willing to participate in the learning part of the program.
A more joyful experience.
Exactly.
Well, in terms of the questions, that's as far as we're going to go on that.
Okay.
But I just want you to, if there's anything that you want to share with the audience,
Sure.
thoughts, plans, what your vision is, please feel free to expound on that.
Definitely. My vision for the City of Orange, for the Board of Education, for the schools of Orange, is that we increase the opportunities that our children could be afforded. I think it's so important to expose our children to all the things that they could be capable of if they just put their minds to it. It's our job to keep them motivated and inspired and to occupy their time with things that will ultimately mature them We have to provide them with internships. And that all comes from better involving our community. I feel like guiding our children into a better education, into a better skill set, we change a community. We create more business owners. We create stronger contributors. We bring families back together. This solves more than one problem. And my ultimate vision is just to see us better as a community, see our children stronger, see them go to college and have the same experience that other students from other districts have. I just want to see our kids have the opportunities that other children have.
Great. Well, thanks for taking the time to speak with the audience. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to come and, sit through this interview, and really appreciate it. Just want to remind the audience that Tuesday, March 13th is Election Day. Your vote is your voice. Please use it. This is a historic moment for the City of Orange Township, and you should avail yourself the opportunity to have input in terms of who's actually sitting on the board and the decisions they're going to be making on behalf of our children. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.